Okay, so I have stripped down this lower cabinet a little bit. I'm pretty much making it ready for departure to my friend's house where we are going to work, where we are going to do the woodwork and putting on some new some new decals on this machine. And it was a little bit of work to get all the stuff off of this lower cabinet. It's more to do than you actually think, and but I'm pretty happy with it. We had to strengthen up this cabinet. It has some moisture damage here, but I'm not quite sure actually what to do with it, other than leave it as it is. Maybe, of course, tear it down a little bit here, do some sanding, and we have strengthened up the cabinet with some with a nail gun here, putting in some stabilizers here and here, and that should do it, I think. Yeah, we put some glue, some tree glue, wood glue, whatever you call it in English, of course, as well as aside to the nails. And right now I'm removing this ground strap out of the lower cabinet. And then it's maybe gonna take some time before I actually have time to proceed doing the re-decaling of this game. So here's the back box, by the way. And this is because I have a lot to do at work right now, and I don't have so much energy when I come home. So, but I'm having a week off in a month, three weeks a month, and I will have much more time to do this kind of stuff. And I think in the meantime I will be preparing the boards, doing some stuff like that, which I love to do. So hopefully there will be some videos with whatever I'm doing, rehabbing. Of course, we're going to rehab the boards out of this Fishtails game. Mainly the power driver board, of course. Do the 5-volt rehab and change out some capacitors on the soundboard as well. Removing the horrible batteries on the MPU board, and yeah, just some maintenance on the boards. Which I think everybody should do. Yeah, that's it for now. All right, it's time to start working on the boards. And first off, we gotta do the power driver board. And I spoke too soon again, because on further inspection of this board, I found out a little bit more. And we have some really bad, no, I wouldn't say really bad news, but there's going to be a lot of work to this board before I consider this board good to go in the game. That's for sure. So as I always do, I start with the fuses and checking the fuses, because I already know right off the bat that it's not going to be the right fuses in this board in the WPC games. It's very common that you have at least one or two that's not the correct value. So in the GI section, I found there was a 16 amp fuse instead of a 5. That's crazy. And in the 12-volt circuit, there was an 8 amp. It's supposed to be a 3. So it's got to be replaced. Now I'm very surprised by the solenoid fuses here. They all were the correct 3 amps. So great. And also the other ones here. Moving on to the next thing I discovered. And this is what I really don't like. And it's also, unfortunately, very common sight on these WPC games. Power driver boards. I'm gonna try to pick this up. This is the worst thing with not having like a stand for the camera. I'm using my iPhone. I hope to get a GoPro or something in the future, but I hope that you guys can pick up this If you look at the right 2 pins on this connector, yeah, that's solder. And it's a shame somebody would do something like that, but instead of changing out the connector, or should I say both the female and the male connector, because this one, it's gotta go, of course. But the main concern on this board, and I wasn't expecting that. I've seen it. I've seen it a few times because I do rehab a lot of these boards, and the cross zero circuit, or around it here. Here is the 12-volt regulator, 7812 voltage regulator. They are known to leak, and unfortunately, this one has done exactly that. And as you can see, the corrosion has got under the solder mask here. And we also have these components, and this is the way I always check this, but I kind of noticed when I started working on this board now, right away you can see how shiny the components are here compared. You can like see the pitting and start of corrosion, or it is corrosion. Maybe some people who don't work with this kind of stuff won't notice, but you can see it. And also this LM339 is affected by the corrosion. I don't know if the camera, yeah, you can see the green. You can see the green on the legs. Right about here. Yeah. And unfortunately, it also seemed to got up in this section here. No, it's behind the voltage regulator. I saw, yeah, there is some green here on this diode. So we have to rehab this and scrape this down to, we'll see how deep we have to scrape it, but a lot of components has to go here in order to make this a reliable board for the future. And then of course we have to do the 5 volts, rehab that I used to do. And everybody who works on these kind of boards has kind of their own way to do this. What I normally would do is to, and I'm gonna say this, and this goes for a lot of my videos. This is how I do it. I'm not a self-proclaimed expert at this, but this is what works for me. So I like to switch out this connector and also C5, of course. I switch out, what do we have here? C4 and C2. And of course, the outgoing connector to the MPU board here. That used to take you a long way, I would say, with the 5-volt problem, reset problem. If that doesn't help, I always like to tell people to change out the housings on this connector, and if needed, on this connector as well. What else? Yes, the LM323. That's kind of a last resort for me to switch out. If the other thing doesn't work that I mentioned, then I'm gonna go for this guy. That used to solve the problem if the other switch out doesn't help you. So what else? No, that's what up with this board. Many people like to they like to also change out BR2, but I found out that many times that doesn't help out anything. So I like to leave it. It's it's not a complicated thing to switch it out, but you have to remove other parts. It's not a big deal, but I think it's unnecessary. It doesn't help. Yeah, was it something else with this board? Yeah, I have to come back later with that. Now it's time for some work. One thing that I like to mention is that or what I actually noticed, is that this LM323K voltage, 5 voltage regulator has started to become obsolete. And at least in Europe, there are like cheap knockoffs to buy from like China and stuff, but people tell me to avoid them. So this is going to be a big problem in the pinball community anytime soon. So there are replacements, I know that, and they are also adjustable. My problem is they are not sold in Europe. At least I haven't found them there, at least not cheap enough. So I know they have some website in the States where you can buy them, and that's probably where I have to go to and order very many of them to get them cheaper, because they are in a lot of pinball machines. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you have a stock of these, you better hold on to them. Right, so moving on, I have removed a lot of components from the board. Starting off with this 7-pin connector, and also this 7-pin connector. I removed C4 and C2, and as you can see, I've scraped off the corrosion of the board, out of the board. There is a lot to replace, as you can see. And even behind the voltage regulator, there was actually 2 infected components that needs to be changed out as well. Then I moved on to C5, and as you can see here, I have scraped off a little bit of the traces here. Why am I doing this? Well, what you want to do is, my goal is to put some solder stitching to the back side of the board coming from the traces here. This is because you want to secure the continuity between the front and the back side of the via hole. Unfortunately, people just, when switching out C5 or these other big capacitors, they are just simply, after they many times have pulled the through hole, that is, they just solder on this side and they think it's fine. And maybe there is, but there's many cases there will be incontinuity, the English word for that. You know what I mean, to the other side of the board. And that's why I have started to strip down this wire over here. Let me get a focus on this, like so. And I want to use this smaller threads here. I'm going to pull them. I'm going to pull this edge of the thread through the boards and solder it to this scraped surface here, and you will see what happens next. This is how it looks like on the component side now. As you can see, I have solder stitched the wires on each through hole, and on the back side it's gonna look like this. And next step is to put in the new capacitor in place, and then you want to twist each of the wires around the leads of the capacitor, and then you got to cut it off at an appropriate length, and then you're going to be done. And this C5 will be secured for a long time. Right, so now this is C5. No, where is C5? Here is C5. And as you can see, this is how it turned out. And you may say, well, those solder joints don't look 100% great. Actually, they are really great considering what I've done, because you have to take into consideration there's a copper wire going around those leads. So this is probably as good as it gets, but it's a great investment to have a reliable board for the future. So this is what I always do for C5, and it goes a long way. Next up, what is next up? Well, what is next up? Yes, I noticed on this GI connector they have soldered wires. So this one as well, you can see on the left hand side here. They have, at least somewhere in the past, they have soldered wires. And of course, if you would put a female housing on this, it's going to be a really flaky connection here, leaving this solder on the pins. So it needs to go. So that's what's next. That's what's up next here. Hello, today we are in Tenhult, Sweden, and it's the first day of the cabinet restoration. And today is the day when we are going to remove the old cabinet decals. And it's not my favorite part of the pinball hobby, but it has to be done in this case. And yeah, so let's get started. All right, so we're pretty much done with the first side, just the fine scrapings left to do. And the way I like to do this is to use this grinder tool where you can scrape off the decals. And so one guy is doing this one, and one person is holding this heater gun and pre-warming up the decals, and it will just come off easily. So now it's just some minor parts to come off, and then we're done with the first side. Okay, so the decals have been removed from all sides. It's just small parts left, and that's gonna be taken care of later. But now it's time to do some wood filler, and we have areas like this. And I like to use, I don't know the specific English words, but I like to call it chemical wood filler, if so everybody understands what I mean. So that's what's up next to fill in this. All right, so we have done the first layer of chemical wood filler, as I like to call it in Swedish. As you can see, it's not the best, but it's just the first layer. So we'll see how it turns out in the end.